End of the world warning. Scientists say humanity is on the brink in their chilling warning. Scientists published a chilling report today. They detailed the severe risks that impact of climate change pose for the future of humanity. Not only climate change, but also, of course, air pollution, water pollution. The UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change IPCC report explains the dire impacts climate change is already causing for millions of people around the world, but it warned no region will be safe from horrifying future impacts climate change is expected to bring. It's also, of course, the sea level rising. UN Security Secretary General Antonio Guterres said, following the report's publication, he says, "I have seen many scientific reports in my time, but nothing like this. Today's IPCC report is an atlas of human suffering and a damning indictment of failed climate leadership." This comes just a week after the UN warned wildfires are also becoming more frequent and intense, threatening to change landscapes into tinderboxes. It also comes after IPCC issued a code red for humanity last year, ahead of the COP26 climate summit in Glasgow, urging immediate action to prevent environmental disaster. There were fears the second edition of the sixth assessment report would spell even more chilling warnings. The COP22 president, Aloka Sharma, told The Guardian, based on the science of recent years, there is an expectation that the report will tell us that over the past decade, climate change impacts have been much greater than anticipated. Policymakers need to see this as another wake-up call to take action now. Countries need to take action now, he said. If we don't take action now, the cost will be much higher and the impacts higher in the future years. The Code Red warning sent back in August marked the first edition of the six-part assessment, and following that release, Guterres said, although we must act decisively now to keep 1.5 alive, meaning 1.5 degrees Celsius, there are clear solutions for this, he said. Inclusive and green economies, prosperity, cleaner air, and better health are possible for all if we respond to this crisis with solidarity and courage. The report was prepared by 234 scientists from 66 countries, suggesting that human activities affect all major climate system components. However, the US latest report appears even more terrifying. It warned between 3.3 billion and 3.6 billion people live in areas highly vulnerable to climate change, around 40% of the world's population. That's because they live near rivers and coastlines where the sea level, of course, will rise, rivers and lakes flooding from extreme weather events. In addition, it added that some low-lying coastal areas facing inundation if temperatures are not limited. Worrying if temperatures soar between 1.7 1.8 Celsius above the 1850 levels, half the human population could be vulnerable to life-threatening climate conditions arising from heat and humidity, according to the report. So it explained how extreme weather events like floods and heat waves are to cause even more severe impacts to humans than previous studies estimated. The first IPCC report already made aware that human-induced climate change is likely the main driver of heavier, more frequent torrential rainfall since the 1950s, and the report said it's very likely that heavy precipitation events will intensify and become more frequent in most regions and add additional global warming. Food production and food security will also be threatened by even a small amount of additional warming. Professor Deborah Roberts, co-chair of the IPCC, said, "Our report clearly indicates that places where people live and work may cease to exist, that ecosystems and species that we've all grown up with and that are central to our cultures and inform our languages may disappear." She said, so this is really a key moment. Our report points out very clearly this is a decade of action if we're going to turn things around. Madeleine Dovsar from Senegal, chair of the least developed countries, LDCs, in the UN climate talk, said, "I read this report with a great deal of fear and sadness, but not surprised. It's very clear to us that no amount of adaptation could compensate for falling not achieving the limit of 1.5 degrees Celsius. The report confirms that we are already seeing and experiencing climate change is causing devastating loss and damage and disproportionately affecting our vulnerable people. As she said, efforts to adopt and adapt early must urgently be enhanced. Accessible finance is a key barrier, according to the report. We will be seeking dedicated public finance in the international negotiations, both for adaptation and for addressing loss and damage. The full IPCC report can be found in Climate Change 2022, Impacts, Adaptation, and Vulnerability. IPCC Work Group 2 contributed to the 6th assessment report. So this is what's new concerning the climate change. Conclusions. Now, this is by Jacob Paul and Express. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.